Ladies and gentlemen, every human being experiences hesitation. It's that split second when you think about doing something, but instead of acting, you pause. This pause might seem harmless, but it's far more powerful than most people realize. The moment you hesitate, your brain begins to work against you. Not out of malice, but because it is programmed to protect you from potential risks, discomfort, or uncertainty. Thousands of years ago, this instinct was a survival mechanism. If you hesitated before exploring a dark cave, you might have avoided a predator. If you paused before eating a strange fruit, you might have prevented poisoning. In the modern world, though, the same mechanism that once saved lives often keeps us from living fully. It stops us from speaking up, from pursuing new opportunities, from stepping outside our comfort zones, and from taking the actions we know could change our lives. The process happens so quickly that you rarely notice it. You get an idea to raise your hand in a meeting, introduce yourself to someone new, or start working on a task you've been avoiding. But instead of moving immediately, you start to think. And that thinking, those few extra seconds, are where the brain begins its subtle sabotage. Your mind starts feeding you excuses. What if you sound stupid? You can do it later. You're too tired right now. These excuses feel reasonable, even logical, because your brain is wired to seek safety and avoid effort or failure. But safety in this sense doesn't mean survival anymore. It means staying in familiar territory, even if it's holding you back. Neuroscience explains that hesitation activates a part of your brain responsible for detecting threat. The trouble is, in everyday life, the threats it detects aren't lions or physical dangers, they're emotional risks like embarrassment, rejection, or failure. Once triggered, this system sends a signal that creates a wave of uncertainty. Your body might feel tension, your heart rate might change, and your thoughts shift toward why you shouldn't act. In just a few seconds, that initial spark of motivation is smothered. The tragedy is that many of the best opportunities in life appear for only a moment. A stranger you want to talk to walks away. A chance to speak up in a discussion passes to someone else. The motivation to go to the gym fades as you get comfortable on the couch. Every time you hesitate, you risk losing the momentum that action requires. And the more you let hesitation win, the more it becomes a habit. Over time, it can erode your confidence, make you second-guess yourself, and convince you that you're incapable of change. But there's also a hopeful truth hidden here. Hesitation is not a permanent state, it's a pattern. And like all patterns, it can be interrupted. Once you understand that the brain's protective response is automatic and that it operates on a short timeline, you can take advantage of that knowledge. You don't need to eliminate fear, overthinking, or doubt. You just need a method to act before those forces take over. That's where the concept of interrupting hesitation becomes so powerful. By catching yourself in that tiny window between intention and action, and by moving forward before your brain shuts you down, you can bypass the mental resistance that's been holding you back. Recognizing the science behind hesitation gives you control. You can see it not as a flaw in your character, but as a natural function of your biology, one that you can learn to manage. When you do, you begin to see every hesitation not as a stop sign, but as a signal. This is the exact moment to act. And when you consistently act in those moments, you start building a different kind of reflex, the reflex of courage, decisiveness, and forward motion. The 5-second rule is deceptively simple, yet its effectiveness lies in the way it works with your brain's natural wiring. The moment you feel the urge to take action, whether it's getting out of bed, making a phone call, speaking up in a meeting, or starting a task, you begin counting backward. 5. It sounds almost too easy, but the science behind it explains why it's so powerful. Counting backward interrupts your habitual thought patterns. Normally, when you feel uncertain or unmotivated, your mind floods with excuses and distractions. But the countdown works like a mental circuit breaker, shifting your focus from your doubts to the act of moving. It takes your brain off autopilot and engages the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, planning, and intentional behavior. When you count backward, you are essentially forcing your mind to focus on something active and structured. Unlike counting up, which can go on indefinitely, counting down creates a sense of urgency. Your brain knows that when the countdown ends, something is supposed to happen. Think of how rockets launch. There's no pause after one, there's immediate liftoff. This psychological framing signals to your body that it's time to take action, leaving less room for hesitation or second-guessing. The beauty of the 5-second rule is that it doesn't require motivation. Too often, people wait to feel ready before starting something. But motivation is unreliable. It fluctuates based on mood, energy, and circumstances. If you rely on it, you'll miss countless opportunities. The rule bypasses the need for motivation entirely. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you create it by counting down and moving. You're telling your brain, we're doing this now regardless of how you feel. This method is especially effective against procrastination. Procrastination is not laziness. It's often a coping mechanism for avoiding discomfort. Your brain associates a task with effort, uncertainty, or potential failure, so it steers you towards something easier, like scrolling through your phone. The 5-second rule interrupts this avoidance loop by forcing you to act before your brain convinces you not to. Once you start, the resistance tends to fade. Action builds momentum, and momentum makes the next step easier. It's also an incredibly effective tool for breaking habits tied to fear. Many people avoid speaking up, networking, or taking risks because they're afraid of judgment or rejection. But fear thrives in stillness. It grows the longer you wait. By using the rule to act immediately, you give fear no time to take hold. You override the emotional part of your brain with a decisive physical movement. Over time, this consistent pattern builds courage. You begin to trust yourself, knowing you can push through discomfort. The rule is not about reckless decisions. It's about taking intentional actions that you already know you want or need to take. It's for those moments when your instinct aligns with your goals, but hesitation threatens to hold you back. The key is in recognizing that tiny window of opportunity, the gap between the initial impulse and the moment your brain starts talking you out of it, and choosing to close that gap with action. With consistent practice, the 5-second rule becomes more than just a countdown. It becomes a trigger for discipline. You start associating the act of counting down with doing what matters, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. This shifts your identity. You're no longer someone who hesitates. You become someone who acts. And in a world where hesitation costs opportunities, that shift can change everything about the way you live, work, and grow. Confidence is often misunderstood as something you either have or you don't, as if it's a fixed personality trait that belongs only to the naturally bold. In reality, confidence is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, strengthened, and maintained through practice. It is not born from perfection or fearlessness. It is born from taking consistent, small actions, even when you feel uncertain or uncomfortable. The more you act despite doubt, the more you prove to yourself that you are capable, and this repeated proof builds an unshakable trust in your own abilities. The 5-second rule is a practical tool for building this trust. Every time you use it to take action, whether it's speaking up in a room full of people, starting a difficult task, or making a decision you've been avoiding, you send a signal to your brain, I can rely on myself. This isn't about always succeeding. It's about showing up, even if the outcome isn't perfect. The very act of moving forward reinforces the idea that you are in control of your choices. Over time, this consistent follow-through rewires your self-image from someone who hesitates to someone who acts. When you don't take action, the opposite happens. Each time you hesitate and let the moment pass, you teach yourself that you can't be counted on. This chips away at self-confidence, and replaces it with self-doubt. You begin to overthink simple decisions, avoid challenges, and question your worth. But the moment you start making small decisive moves, that pattern begins to reverse. The beauty of the 5-second rule is that it allows you to start this reversal immediately, without waiting for inspiration or courage to magically appear. Confidence grows in the moments when you choose discomfort over comfort, action over delay. Think about someone learning to swim. They don't build confidence by watching from the edge of the pool. They build it by getting into the water, splashing, struggling, and improving. Similarly, you don't build confidence by endlessly thinking about what you should do. You build it by doing. Each countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, becomes a deliberate jump into the pool of action, no matter how cold or intimidating it feels at first. It's important to understand that confidence is not the absence of fear. Many confident people still feel fear. The difference is that they've trained themselves to act anyway. They know that action is the fastest way to quiet fear, because it shifts the brain's focus from worrying about what might happen to dealing with what is happening. The 5-second rule gives you a clear, repeatable process for making that shift in real time. Another important element of confidence is self-respect. When you consistently act on your instincts and follow through on your intentions, you begin to respect yourself more deeply. You stop breaking promises to yourself. You stop letting fear dictate your behavior. And that self-respect becomes the foundation for how you carry yourself in the world. Others sense it too. People are naturally drawn to those who move with decisiveness and authenticity. Over weeks and months of using the rule, you may notice a quiet transformation. You speak more clearly. You volunteer for opportunities without overthinking. You try new things without waiting for permission. And when you face setbacks, you recover faster, because your confidence is not built on being flawless. It's built on the knowledge that you can keep going. In essence, confidence is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite for it. Waiting until you feel confident before acting is like waiting to get stronger before you go to the gym. You have to lift the weight first. The 5-second rule hands you that weight in the smallest, most manageable form, a simple countdown and a single movement. With every repetition, you're not just building the habit of action, you're building the version of yourself who believes they can handle whatever comes next. Ladies and gentlemen, life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards action. Every moment you spend overthinking is a moment you could be moving toward the life you want. You now understand that hesitation is not weakness, it's a natural brain response that can be interrupted. You know the power of a simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown to break through fear, doubt, and procrastination. And you've seen how confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one small act at a time. The truth is, your goals, your dreams, and your best self are all waiting on the other side of a decision. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need the perfect plan. And you don't need anyone's permission. All you need is the courage to move before your mind talks you out of it. That courage is built in seconds, and it is within your control every single day. So the next time you feel the instinct to do something that matters, whether it's to speak, to start, or to stand up, don't wait. Count it down, move your body, and step into the moment before it slips away. Because when you choose action over hesitation, you are not just changing a single moment, you are changing the trajectory of your life. 5 seconds can change everything. Your choice starts now.